双语音标领航，注音阅读启蒙，叶兴阳有声读物。
History of Friedrich II of Prussia, v16. By Thomas Carlyle. Book 16. The 10 Years of Peace. 1746 to 1756. Chapter 1.
Sans souci.
Friedrich has now climbed the heights and sees himself on the upper tableland of victory and success. His desperate life and death struggles triumphantly ended. What may be ahead? Nobody knows. But here is fair outlook that his enemies and Austria itself have had enough of him. No wringing of his Silesia from this bad man. Not to be overset. This one, by never such exertions, oversets us. On the contrary, plunges us heels over head into the ditch. So often as we like to apply to him. Nothing but heavy beatings, disastrous breaking of crowns, to be had on trying there. 5 victories. As Voltaire keeps counting on his fingers, with upturned eyes. Malwitz, Kotusitz, Strigo, Sohr, Kesselsdorf, the last done by Anhalt. But omitting Hennersdorf, and that sudden slitting of the big Saxon-Austrian projects into a cloud of feathers. As fine a feat as any. 5 victories. Counts Voltaire, calling on everybody, or everybody but Friedrich himself, who is easily sated with that kind of thing, to admire. In the world are many opinions about Friedrich.
In Austria.
For instance, what an opinion, sinister, gloomy in the extreme, or in England, which derives from Austria, only with additional dimness, and with gloomy new provocations of its own before long. Many opinions about Friedrich, all dim enough, but this, that he is a very demon for fighting, and the stoutest king walking the earth just now, may well be a universal one. A man better not be meddled with, if he will be at peace, as he professes to wish being. Friedrich accordingly is not meddled with, or not openly meddled with, and has, for the 10 or 11 years coming, a time of perfect external peace. He himself is decided not to fight with a cat, if he can get the peace kept, and for about 8 years hopes confidently that this, by good management, will continue possible.
Till.
In the last 3 years, electric symptoms did again disclose themselves, and such hope more and more died away. It is well known there lay in the fates a third Silesian war for him, worse than both the others, which is now the main segment of his history still lying ahead for us. Were this halcyon period done? Halcyon period counts from Christmas Day.
Dresden, 1745.
From this day, peace to the end of my life, had been Friedrich's fond hope. But on the 9th day of September, 1756, Friedrich was again entering Dresden, Saxony, some 12 days before. And the crowning struggle of his life was, beyond all expectation, found to be still lying ahead for him, awfully dubious for 7 years thereafter. Friedrich's history during this intervening halcyon or peace period must, in some way, be made known to readers. But for a great many reasons, especially at present, it behooves to be given in compressed form, whittled down, to an immense extent, out of those sad Prussian repositories, where the grain of perennial, of significant, and still memorable, lies overwhelmed under rubbish, mountains of the fairly extinct, the poisonously dusty and forgettable, ach Himmel, which indispensable preliminary process. How can an English editor, at this time, do it?
No Prussian.
At any time, having thought of trying it, from a painful predecessor of mine, I collect, rummaging among his dismal paper masses, the following 3 fragments, worth reading here. 1. Friedrich was as busy, in those years, as in the generality of his life, and his actions, and salutary conquests over difficulties, were many, profitable to Prussia and to himself. Very well worth keeping in mind, but not fit for history, or at least only fit in the summary form, to be delineated in little, with large generic strokes, if we had the means. Such details belonging to the Prussian antiquary, rather than to the English historian of Friedrich in our day. A happy 10 years of time, perhaps the time for Montesquieu's aphorism. Happy the people whose annals are blank in history books. The Prussian antiquary. Had he once got any image formed to himself of Friedrich, and of Friedrich's history in its human lineaments and organic sequences, will glean many memorabilia in those years, which his readers then, and not till then, will be able to intercalate in their places, and get human good of. But alas, while there is no intelligible human image, nothing of lineaments or organic sequences, or other than a jumbled mass of historical marine stores, presided over by dry as dust and human stupor, unsorted, unlabeled, tied up in blind sacks. The very antiquary will have uphill work of it, and his readers will often turn round on him with a gloomy expression of countenance.
2.
Friedrich's life little as he expected it. That day when he started up from his ague fit at Rheinsberg, and grasped the fiery opportunity that was shooting past, is a life of war. The chief memory that will remain of him is that of a king and man who fought consummately well. Not peace and the muses.
No.
That is denied him, though he was so unwilling, always, to think it denied. But his life task turned out to be a battle for Silesia. It consists of 3 grand struggles of war. And not for Silesia only. Unconsciously. For what far greater things to his nation and to him. Deeply unconscious of it. They were passing their trials, his nation and he, in the great civil service examination hall of this universe. Are you able to defend yourselves, then, and to hang together coherent, against the whole world and its incoherencies and rages? A question which has to be asked of nations before they can be recognized as such and be baptized into the general commonwealth. They are mere hordes or accidental aggregates. Till that question come, question which this nation had long been getting ready for, which now, under this king, it answered to the satisfaction of gods and men. Yes, heaven assisting, we can stand on our defense, and in the long run, as with air when you try to annihilate it, or crush it to nothing, there is even an infinite force in us, and the whole world does not succeed in annihilating us, upon which has followed what we term national baptism, or rather this was the national baptism, this furious one in torrent whirlwinds of fire, done 3 times over, till in gods, or men, there was no doubt left. That was Friedrich's function in the world, and a great and memorable one, not to his own Prussian nation only, but to Deutschland at large. Forever memorable. Is Deutschland a nation? Is there in Deutschland still a nation?
Austria.
Not dishonestly, but much sunk in superstitions and involuntary mendacities, and liable to sink much farther. Answers always, in gloomy proud tone, yes, I am the nation of Deutschland. That is mistaken, as turns out, for it is not mendacities, conscious or other, but veracities, that the divine powers will patronize, or even in the end will put up with it all, which you ought to understand better than you do, my friend, for, on the great scale, and on the small, and in all seasons, circumstances, scenes and situations where a son of Adam finds himself, that is true, and even a sovereign truth, and whoever does not know it, human charity to him, were such always possible, would be, that he were furnished with handcuffs as a part of his outfit in this world, and put under guidance of those who do. Yes,
To him.
I should say, a private pair of handcuffs were much usefuler than a ballot box, were the times once settled again, which they are far from being. So that, if there be only Austria for nation, Deutschland is in ominous case.
Truly so.
But there is in Deutschland withal, very irrecognizable to Deutschland, yet authentically present, a man of the properly unconquerable type. There is also a select population drilled for him. These two together will prove to you that there is a nation. Conquest of Silesia. 3 Silesian Wars. labors and valors as of Alcides, in vindication of oneself and one's Silesia. Secretly, how unconsciously, that other and higher question of Deutschland, and of its having in it a nation, was Friedrich's sore task and his Prussia's at that time, as Deutschland may be perhaps now, in our day, beginning to recognize, with hope, with astonishment, poor Deutschland. 3. And in fine, leaving all that, there is one thing undeniable. In all human narrative, it is the battle only, and not the victory, that can be dwelt upon with advantage. Friedrich has now, by his Second Silesian War, achieved greatness. Friedrich the Great, expressly so denominated, by his people and others. The struggle upwards is the romance. Your hero, once wedded to glory, or whoever the bride may be, the romance ends. Precise critics do object that there may still lie difficulties, new perils, and adventures ahead, which proves conspicuously true in this case of ours. And accordingly, our book not being a romance but a history, let us, with all fidelity, look out what these are, and how they modify our royal gentleman who has got his wedding done. With all fidelity, but with all brevity, no less, for, inasmuch as, well, brevity in most cases is desirable, and, privately, it must be owned there is another consideration of no small weight, that, our Prussian resources falling altogether into bankruptcy during peace periods, nature herself has so ordered it. In this instance, partly it is our books, the Prussian dry as dust reaching his acme on those occasions. But in part too it is the events themselves, that are small and want importance, that have fallen dead to us, in the huge new time and its uproars. Events not of flagrant notability, like battles or war passages, to bridle dry as dust, and guide him in some small measure. Events rather which, except as characteristic of one memorable man and king, are mostly now of no memorability whatever, crowd all these indiscriminately into sacks, and shake them out pell-mell on us. That is dry as dust sweet way. As if the largest marine stores establishment in all the world had suddenly, on hest of some necromancer or maleficent person, taken wing upon you, and were dancing, in boundless mad whirl, round your devoted head, simmering and dancing, very much at its ease.
No bitter.
Asking you cheerfully, what is your candid opinion? Then, opinion, heavens! You have to retire many yards, and gaze with a desperate steadiness, assuring yourself, well, it does, right indisputably, shadow forth something. This was a thing alive, and did at one time stick together, as an organic fact on the earth. Though it now dances in dry as dust at such a rate, it is only by self-help of this sort, and long survey, with rigorous selection, and extremely extensive exclusion and oblivion, that you gain the least light in such an element. Brevity, little said, when little has been got to be known is an evident rule. Courage, reader. By good eyesight, you will still catch some features of Friedrich as we go along. To say our little in a not unintelligible manner, and keep the rest well hidden, it is all we can do for you. Friedrich declines the career of conquering hero, goes into loriform, and gets ready a cottage residence for himself. Friedrich's journey to Pyrmont is the first thing recorded of him by the newspapers. Gone to take the waters, as he did after his former war. Here is what I had noted of that small occurrence, and of one or two others contiguous in date, which proved to be of significance in Friedrich's history. May 12-17th, 1746. Say the old books. His Majesty sets out for Pyrmont, taking Brunswick by the way. Arrives at Pyrmont May 17th. Stays till June 8th. 3 weeks good. Is busy corresponding with the King of France about a general peace.
But,
owing to the embitterment of both parties, it was not possible at this time, taking the waters at least, and amusing himself, from Brunswick, In passing, he had brought with him his brother-in-law, the reigning Duke. Rothenburg was there, and brother Henri.
Darger expressly.
Flute player Quans withal, and various musical people. In all, a train of above 60 persons. I notice also that Prince Wilhelm of Hessen was in Pyrmont at the time, with whom, one fancies, what speculations there might be about the late and present war passages, about the poor peace prospects, your Hessian siege so-called of Blair and Athol, Culloden now comfortably done, and other cognate topics. That is the Pyrmont journey. It is no surprise to us to hear, in these months, of new and continual attention to army matters, to husbandry matters, and to making good, on all sides, the ruins left by war, of rebuilding, at the royal expense, the town of Schmiedberg, which had been burnt, of rebuilding and repairing from their damage all Silesian villages and dwellings, and still more satisfactory,
How?
in May 1746, there was, in every circle of the country, by exact liquidation of accounts so rapidly got done, exact payment made to the individuals concerned, one of all the hay, straw, and corn that had been delivered to His Majesty's armies, 2, of all the horses that had perished in the king's work, 3, of all the horses stolen by the enemy, and of all the money contributions exacted by the enemy, payment in ready cash, and according to the rules of justice, bar und billigmassig, by His Majesty, Seyfarth. 2, 22, 23. It was from Pyrmont, May 1746, or more definitely, it was at Potsdam early in the morning, September 15th, following, that Friedrich launched, or shot forth from its moorings, after much previous attempting and preparing, a very great enterprise, which he has never lost sight of since the day he began reigning, nor will till his reign and life end. The actual reform of law in Prussia, May 12th, 1746.
Friedrich.
On the road to Pyrmont, answers his chief law minister Coxegee's report of practical plan on this matter. Yes, looks very hopeful, and took it with him to consider at Pyrmont, during his leisure. Much considering of it, then, and afterwards, there was. And finally, September 15th, early in the morning, Coxegee had an interview with Friedrich, and the decisive fiat was given. Yes, start on it, in God's name. Pommern, which they call the Provincia Litigiosa, tried their first. Ranka, 2, 392. And Coxegee, a vigorous old man of 67, one of the most learned of lawyers, and a very Hercules in cleaning law stables, has, on Friedrich's urgencies, which have been repeated on every breathing time of peace there has been, and even sometimes in the middle of war last January 1745, for example, and again, express order, January 1746, a fortnight after peace was signed, actually got himself girt for this salutary work. Wash me out that horror of accumulation. Let us see the old pavements of the place again. Every lawsuit to be finished within the year. Coxegee, who had been meditating such matters for a great while, March 1st, 1738. Friedrich Wilhelm's edict on law reform. Coxegee ready, at that time, but his then Majesty forbore, and was himself eager to proceed, in spite of considerable Whig oppositions and secret reluctances that there were,
Did now,
on that fiat of September 15th, get his select commission of 6 riddled together and adjoined to him, the likeliest 6 that Prussia, in her different provinces, could yield, and got the stand of Pommern, after due committeeing and deliberating, to consent and promise help. December 31 St. 1746, was the day the stand consented, and January 10th, 1747, Coxegee and his 6 set out for Pommern, on a longish enterprise, in that province and the others, of which we shall have to take notice, and give at least the dates as they occur.